President Trump has only been back in power for a little over 2 weeks, and already, thanks to Elon Musk and the DOGE department he's running, the Trump administration is exposing the corruption that has plagued the United States federal government for years, especially inside USAID. And oh my God, the corruption is tremendous. But this video today is not about the daily revelations of the horrible political corruption at USAID, touching upon so many issues and topics to do with America and progressive woke values and the international community. Today, I want to talk to you about what we're learning about USAID's role in manipulating Israel, which is absolutely shocking. We're not just talking about corruption. We're talking about treasonous interference. And it highlights how horrible the Biden administration, the Obama-Biden administration, was to Israel before and during the war. Since the war, many Israelis suspected that the so-called grassroots protests against judicial reform that then immediately morphed into the bring them home hostage protest movement, that they weren't organic at all. And now we finally have proof. It was heavily foreign-funded manipulation. And not just by any foreign entity, by the federal government of the United States under President Biden, the Obama-Biden-Harris administration. Public records exposed by Elon Musk and his team at DOGE now confirm that USAID, a U.S. federal government agency, pumped millions of dollars into Israeli organizations that fueled the political left in Israel, creating division and instability, ultimately emboldening Hamas and literally leading to the death of many Israelis and the suffering of all Israelis, especially our hostages remaining in Gaza. This isn't just political influence. This was a coordinated campaign to topple Netanyahu and destabilize Israel. One of the most shocking revelations involves an Israeli NGO called Blue and White Future, a group that was barely active until 2023. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, it became the financial engine behind the massive Kaplan protests against judicial reform. So where did all the money come from behind those huge protests? As this account tweeted on X, the English translation of the public records, and he writes, very important information on USAID sent through the Blue-White Future Fund used in Israel to cause the street demonstrations that paralyzed the military and nearly toppled the democratically elected government on the eve of the Hamas attack. And translating the records into from Hebrew to English, public records reveal that in 2023 alone, Blue and White Future received 160 million shekels, roughly $44 million. And guess what? At least 14 million of those shekels, around 4 million of it, came directly from, you guessed it, USAID. That's right, the Biden administration, through USAID, was directly funding the anti-government protests in Israel. Color revolution. They called it Israeli democracy in action, but it wasn't democracy. It was a Obama-Biden-Harris foreign-backed, well-funded attempt to take down Netanyahu through a color revolution. And now we understand why U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken personally met with the protest leaders during some of his visits to Israel as he was meeting with his operatives. It wasn't just regular Israelis. They were working for the Biden-Blinken administration. And the worst part, Hamas itself admitted that those protests played a direct role in their decision to attack Israel on October 7th. Senior Hamas official Ari Baraka openly said that they watched the Kaplan judicial reform protests, saw Israel was divided and weak, and decided it was the perfect moment to strike. So let's be clear. Hamas had been planning that attack for years, but the timing of the attack was dictated by the division that they saw in Israel that, again, was created by this Obama-Biden-Harris-backed, USAID-funded protest movement that directly encouraged Hamas to viciously attack Israel. In other words, this Obama-Biden-Harris-backed USAID-funded protest movement directly encouraged Hamas to attack Israel and massacre Israelis. And yet, the damage doesn't stop there. After October 7th, the anti-government protest movement didn't disappear. Instead, it morphed into the hostage families bring them home movement, using the suffering of our hostages as a weapon against the Israeli government and Netanyahu. The same political operatives who ran the Kaplan judicial reform protests quickly rebranded themselves, hijacking the anguish of families and turning them into a political pawn to pressure Netanyahu and his government into dangerous concessions under the slogan, "Bring them home," with the pressure of the Biden administration. Instead of demanding the immediate and total defeat of Hamas, which is the only way to ensure the return of our hostages and win the war, and instead of pressuring Qatar, Iran, Egypt, and international organizations, the Bring Them Home movement blamed Netanyahu and his government, pushing for lopsided hostage deals at any price that emboldened Hamas and made future hostage-taking deals more likely by organizing high-profile protests and pressure campaigns, again under the influence of U.S. funding. The movement signaled to Hamas that the longer they held out, the more they could pressure and extract from Israel in a hostage deal. This played directly into Hamas's hands. Every time the pressure on Netanyahu increased, Hamas increased its demands, delaying the release of our hostages and putting Israeli soldiers and civilians at greater risk. But the backstabbing corruption of the Biden administration goes even deeper. At the same time that USAID was funding anti-government protests in Israel, like first against the judicial reform, then in the name of the hostages, they were also funding Hamas. Yes, even worse, USAID was also funding the Palestinian Authority, claiming that the money was meant to reduce the influence of Hamas. Think about the evil of this for a second. USAID was funding Hamas while also giving money to the Palestinian Authority, pretending that it would counter Hamas. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Authority itself agreed to pay over $97 million to reward the Hamas terrorists who personally carried out the October 7th horrendous barbaric attacks. And on top of all this, 2.1 billion USA dollars that have been sent to Gaza and Judea and Samaria directly wound up in the bank accounts of billionaire Hamas and Palestinian Authority terrorists who call not just for the destruction of Israel, but for death to America. Check out this parody video that highlights this specific issue.
Cannot believe what we have brought on Gaza. Thank Allah that we are safe in the plaza. There's nothing left to eat like a Ramadan retreat. I don't really give a shit. Cause I'm hanging on my sweet. Check out, we are dealing here with monsters. The room service wouldn't bring us lobsters. Call Maya Khalifa to play with us on FIFA and tell her to dress up like she is a nursing chief. Dollar bills, dollar bills. My people have no water, wonder how it feels. Dollar bills, dollar bills. They have no gasoline, I just wonder when you will donate us money, my dog needs new Armani. Cause the sky is black, but Qatar is always sunny. Knocking on the door, fuck it's the Mossad. Chill ya baba, I just ordered sushi avocado. Dollar bills, dollar bills. Mash'al is so straight, he just got himself new grills. Dollar bills, dollar bills. Put some Netflix on, I don't want to see the kills. Donate us money, my dog needs new Armani. Cause the sky is black, but Qatar is always sunny. You just gave me money, life is pretty funny. Cause the sky is black, but Qatar is always sunny.
And in this article, titled Biden Admin Filled Terrorist Coffers with Over $1.3 billion before Trump took wrecking ball to foreign aid, that millions of dollars the Biden administration gave to Palestinian cause organizations. It writes that the Palestinian Authority agreed to pay more than $97 million to reward the barbaric Hamas terrorist perpetrators of the October 7th attacks. And the Biden administration continued giving it money. even after it gave the money to the terrorists that did the October 7th massacre. Can it get any more evil than that? It is very important that everyone understand that the Obama-Biden-Harris administration used American taxpayer money to fund both sides of the Palestinian Arab terror machine, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. And it doesn't stop there. It gets even worse. In 2016, USAID gave $310 million of U.S. taxpayer money to a Palestinian Arab cement factory in Gaza. What did that money fund? The building of the terror tunnels in Gaza.
Perhaps the worst expenditure from USAID. USAID in 2016 gave $310 million of your taxpayer money to a Palestinian cement factory project. It was a private venture by a company called Sanad to create cement mills and factories. What do you think they needed all that cement for? What do you think they used all that cement for? I'll give you 3 guesses. What did the Palestinians in Gaza use all that cement for, paid for by your taxpayer dollars? Any ideas? Oh yeah, that would be the 300 miles of terror tunnels that Hamas built underneath the Gaza Strip, leading to the complete destruction of the Gaza Strip after October 7th. So just slow clap for the geniuses in the permanent bureaucratic state.
The very tunnels that Hamas used to attack us and kidnap us and kill Israelis on October 7th and hide our hostages until today were literally built with U.S. taxpayer money funneled through USAID. I hope you are internalizing that this wasn't incompetence of the Biden administration. This was a coordinated attack on Israel by the Obama-Biden-Harris administration. And yet there are still American Jews who are complaining about Trump being elected and not receiving the next Obama-Biden-Harris administration? Understand the pattern is undeniable. USAID funded Israeli protests to weaken Netanyahu, funded Hamas to wage war against Israel, funded the Palestinian Authority while it was rewarding Hamas terrorists, and they reward their own terrorists, funded the cement factory that built Hamas's terror tunnels. This wasn't a mistake, everyone. This was a policy. And the ultimate goal? To topple Netanyahu so that a left-wing government would be installed in Israel that would retreat from Judea and Samaria, divide Jerusalem, and surrender to the Obama-Biden-Harris administration's demands. But thank God, Netanyahu stood up and Trump won the elections. Now with Biden out and President Trump back, all of this is being exposed. The days of U.S. taxpayer money being used to destabilize Israel, fund anti-government protests in Israel, and keep Hamas alive and the Palestinian Authority alive, those days are over. Please God, Israel will now be free to fight and win this war without the U.S. interference that Netanyahu and his government have had to deal with until now, and successfully dealt with until now, at the risk of our lives. We paid the price with our lives because of their evil. And Americans will no longer have their tax dollars wasted on the Democrats' reckless, destructive, and terror-supporting policy. So what needs to happen now? 1, Israel must stop the foreign funding, not just from USAID, but all the billions of euros and dollars from European governments as well, all financing our enemies and trying to undermine Israeli sovereignty in Israel. 2, USAID's role in funding these protests, funding Hamas, funding the Palestinian Authority, must be investigated and they must be punished. 3, Israeli organizations complicit in this scheme must be exposed and shut down. The Jewish people have survived thousands of years of enemies trying to destroy us from the outside. We will not allow a foreign-backed political coup, and this has been going on for decades, to succeed in weakening us from within, because now this weakens now this weakens our internal problems. It is absolutely miraculous that Netanyahu has withstood all of this pressure, a literal U.S.-funded color revolution coup that included funding the killing of Jews for decades. But now, with Trump back in office and this all being exposed, it's time for Israel to go on the offense. Now is the time that Israel, not only total victory in the Gaza Strip with the Arabs migrating, we must push forward with total victory based on a real peace through strength doctrine that includes full sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, eliminating all terrorists, incentivizing enemy populations to immigrate, ensuring that only those who accept Israel's sovereignty, understand how blessed it is to live in the Jewish state of Israel, remain. With Biden gone and Trump back in charge, it's time for Israel to take control over our own destiny. We must apply sovereignty over Judea and Samaria now, as well as over Gaza. It's time to end the madness, crush our enemies, and secure the future of the Jewish state of Israel forever, and put an end to the backstabbing of the internal powers out to weaken and destroy the Jewish state of Israel as well. And hopefully now they will be weakened as their funding from consecutive Democrat administrations has dried up. So please God, may all of their protest movements die down. It's still going to exist because there's still plenty of rich Israelis that want to topple the government, but it won't be with the backing and funding of U.S. administrations. These are miraculous times. What we're witnessing with the exposure by Elon Musk's work at Doge and USAID, it's just the tip of the iceberg of the corruption being exposed in America, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of its involvement in Israel. But our eyes are being opened up. The wake-up process is in full gear, folks. Trajectory is going up. Hold on to your faith. Strengthen your faith. We're going to have good times. It's up to God above and up to us. Am Yisrael Chai. That's it for today's Pulse of Israel video. If you're not yet a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And we are a donor-based organization. We need your support to assist in getting our videos seen by many more people. Every once in a while, click on the donate button, whether big or small, and donate to... Every once in a while, visit pulseofisrael.com and click on the donate button, whether big or small. We are very appreciative of your support. Thank you. Shalom, and thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.